Today on Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, we're answering your questions about clearing clutter and getting organized. What are your burning questions about organizing? Where have you found yourself stumped when decluttering? Do you find yourself ready to quit and not sure what your next step should be? Learn how to overcome some challenges as we continue our month focusing on teamwork. Do you control your clutter, or does your clutter control you? On Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, we'll teach you awareness as well as action steps to create change in your life. Come on, let's get started. Happy 350th episode, Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out. The huge milestone came a little bit earlier because I did a couple of the special Corona Files episodes. I just want to say thank you to all that watch and listen, whether it's on iTunes or Google Play or watching on YouTube. I'm very appreciative of it. If you've been enjoying it, I'd love if you'd share an episode or rate and review and spread the love. This has been a complete labor of love for me. I learned that most podcasts, I think, don't make it past 7 episodes. So they start and then quit after 7 episodes. So 350 is definitely a milestone. I wanted to do something. I tried like 100th, I took clips, and then I can't remember what I did with 250. And I always try when it's kind of a big number. So what I wanted to do for this one was I put together a couple Q&A sessions. This was from all this month, the live coaching sessions that I did in April and May. And I thought, wow, I'm biased, but all of you are the best. I mean, any of you watching, listening have such great questions. And so I thought, you know what? Some of these questions might support someone. They might help them. They wouldn't have thought to have asked. And I mentioned, there's one question I'd never been asked before. And I definitely have been asked things in a different manner. So it was great to have it keep me on my toes. As usual, it's kind of off the top of my head. And so I'm thinking about the question, trying to answer, and then it'll come back a little bit back and forth because I'd say, hey, does that sound right to you? And then I will answer something else and come back when the person answers. So anyway, I hope that you find great benefit. These were 2 episodes that I put together, so a little longer, but I believe that we all meant what we need to hear. And so hopefully this will spark some answers for you. Good morning, good afternoon, Rose. How can I mindfully keep relatively organized? I have a severely autistic teen son's room, and the rest of the house, when a violent rage often breaks furniture, child locks, and upends the order of the house. It's very chaotic life here, even before the pandemic. Rose, my heart goes out to you because that has to be an incredibly stressful situation, and I hope that you have support that can help you at home and just for your sanity, that you have someone that you can talk to. That's a very interesting question. And the first time I've been asked that. I guess the best thing, breaking furniture and child locks, I'm trying to go through my mind. I think probably if it's possible, one of the things I'm thinking of, can you find furniture, one, that doesn't break? Because then you have the expense of repairing it or replacing it. So I'm thinking kind of those soft couches, things of that nature. I mean, it's hard. Like a bookcase would be something that's wood and that couldn't break as well. What I'm feeling right for you off the top of my head is I hope that you have an area where he cannot get to. And the thing that I'm thinking of in my own house that I have is I have a sacred space where I have things like crystals. Hey, Cheryl. I have things like crystals, and it's kind of a sacred space where I can go meditate, just journal and think about things. I would hope, Rose, that you can come up with a space that's your own where nothing can be touched, even if it's something that you put in a little box that you keep in maybe your closet. And then when you have spare time, you pull out, and as a way that you can honor yourself. I think that would
be something that just kind of centered, that's just for you, that's sacred, and that can't be touched. And the breaking the furniture, I would think whatever you could do. I mean, that's a real challenge. If he can get out of a room and break a lock, I would say just do the best you can. I mean, as much as you can declutter and simplify, that's one, going to make it easier on you, and because you'll have less stuff to maintain. Tell me a little bit else, Rose, about what's going on, so I can maybe give you some more feedback and give you some tips to help. I mean, the big thing I really feel is getting that sacred space for you, as well as having less stuff. If you have less stuff, then it's least likely to be broken. And then I don't know if you'd also have an option, of storing things. Is there a certain area that he can't get to where you could store things that are precious or not breakable? I don't know if it would be other things that are floating through my mind. I'm not sure if they would work for your situations. For example, if you say you have books, and instead of having on a bookcase where he could throw them around or do something like that, could you keep them in a container and then put the lid on? So that's something, again, you could probably dump that out, but a plastic container might be harder to break. So Rose says she's definitely been decluttering for years. Good job. Your large master closet is getting filled. Besides writing notes, this household of 5 is getting complicated. Yeah, if you have 5 people in a household, that's really, really a challenge. But what I'd say to you, and I did a video on this last week of working together as a family. So you say you've been decluttering, but what about everyone in the family? Have they been doing that, or is it mainly you? Because if you're the only one doing that, that means other people's rooms, other people's stuff aren't getting decluttered. And so besides writing notes, I don't know if that's you're saying to I don't know if they're kids or spouse saying, hey, let stuff go. What I'd encourage you to do, and again, give me more feedback so I can make it as specific as possible. What I'd encourage you to do is have everyone commit to a weekend. And that doesn't mean you have to work 10 hours straight, but say lots of maybe asking what are best ways to have the family declutter. Definitely working together as a family. So you say, hey, this weekend we're going to commit to this. And one of the things that's really important, don't have any judgment. Don't guilt anyone. I'm going to say, don't approach this like I've been the only one decluttering for years. I'm over it. I know that's frustrated. You're frustrated, but get your frustration out here. And so what you can do is say, okay, we're going to commit to this weekend. And what I would tell you, because you've been doing it, is make a priority list. So what's most important? Is the kitchen a disaster? Cheryl, I'll get to Cheryl's kitchen. Cheryl, I'll get to your question second. Let me finish Rose's. So I would say make a priority list. Like, you're not going to get everything done in the weekend, but what do you think? Like, is it the family room because everyone hangs out there? Is it the kitchen because the kitchen's a hot mess and you're doing takeout and not eating well? So because you've done this, you're going to have to take the lead. So you figure out, what is the priority? What are we going to work on this weekend? Everyone's involved. No shaming, no blaming. You can get snacks so people don't wander off. You can say, okay, this is our schedule. 10 to 12, we declutter. We take a half an hour break for lunch. Then we declutter 12:30 to 4, take another little break, set up a schedule, and then set up a game plan. And so, for instance, you might say if you're doing the kitchen, then you say that any expired spice goes, any expired food in the cabinet goes. And so that way you have a parameter. So we don't have to spend time like, oh, should we do that? Nope, mom said it's expired, let's let it go. And that you would set those parameters. And I'm going to answer Cheryl's question, and then I'm going to see what she has to say, and then stew on those rows and give me some feedback, and if I was tackling what you're looking for. Cheryl says, I'm the most impatient person I know. Selling my house and moving to Las Vegas made me crazy. My patience has improved, and I'm growing by leaps and bounds. I no longer grit my teeth, lose my temper, and I'm learning to talk things out. That is awesome. That is awesome, Cheryl, because you'll have to, if you're interested, listen to the first part, because one of the lessons I learned about myself is my patience in some area is the example I used with someone that posted something factually incorrect. They said no COVID deaths had happened in North Carolina. And I'm like, that's factually wrong. And I'm tired of people not willing to do research or think on their own. And I'm done with people who spread misinformation. So that is huge. No longer. So congratulations. That's really good. I'm very proud of you. You are doing a great job, and keep with that. And I think selling a house and moving would make anyone crazy. So kudos to you. That's very awesome. So I think that's great. I think it's really important. And that's one of the goals that I hope. I know since it's been almost 2 months, I'm getting a little stir crazy, and I still go out to the grocery store once a week, and we've just really limited everything. And until my breathing gets better, not exercising. But I just hope, so I understand that people are getting stir crazy. I just hope, and why I wanted to do this, talk about this today, is because I see people getting stuck, not moving forward. And again, no judgment, but my hope is, and I shared this in one of the earlier episodes I did about this, my hope is that when I was laid off when I lived in Los Angeles for 9 months, and I feel like I couldn't move, and I feel like I spun my wheels for 9 months. I think I was unemployed for 9 months. It was a big chunk of change. And so I didn't want anyone else, when I learned from that lesson, like I never want to do that again. And so my hope is that people, instead of staying stuck or not doing anything or just being out of sorts, can step back for a moment and have some clarity through all this. I do not discount that people are struggling. I do not discount the challenges of everyone, but that's about, to me, finding, well, what good is coming out of this situation? You know, families are getting together to more, there's less pollution. You know, all of these things are really important. So that's kind of my hope. But kudos to you, Cheryl. Those are awesome things. No longer gritting your teeth. That's definitely huge. And I hope you're doing okay out in Vegas, because I just read about them this morning. So sending you lots of love and light. Some Life is Good I love Life is Good t-shirts. And so today's, I'll show that. I should show that at the beginning, which is, believe there is love. I had posted in a group to get feedback, and that was really interesting, because you learn. And one of the things I said, I always thanked everyone for their perspective, their words of wisdom, and those that showed me compassion. It's again fascinating to me when you step back and read what people have to say on social media, because you can really learn a lot. Like, some people just had zero compassion for me and just couldn't even see my perspective. And again, it is what it is. I really try to not waste time on social media responding to it. It's not my job, and make people open their minds and hearts. I try. I hope that I've planted a seed with some people, but it can be a challenge. So Rose, no, I'm not. I'm only one decluttering here and master the household. That's the complication. The kid takes all my time, yet no respite, because school's closed and his violence is up. Okay. For then Cheryl comment, it might seem trite, but I've learned to do my own hair again. Cheryl, I'm with you. I've been using henna, and I'm bad. I always miss this area by my ears. I always miss that. So Rose, I have a good game plan for me to instill overall. My household is quite organized, but it's upending when I need to move something important quickly. Sometimes I forget where I saved it to. It's just a kind of constant upended household. I'd like to find a new regular pattern too. Okay, so a couple thoughts. One, this is a special time. Your child will be in school again. I don't know anything about the violence. I get that, probably some stir crazy. Have you tried anything? Like, I'm a huge fan. I have lavender, and I will just simply do this. I don't know if that's too weird for you or you're open to it. And I know very little about autism. I don't know if there's something I've seen. I'm a huge animal person. We just had the animal adoption I did. I believe the young man was autistic, and it's really wonderful because she shares pictures, and they adopted the cat, and the cat and this young man are best buddies. and they sleep together, and I've seen this with dogs too, that they really have a calming effect. So I don't know if you're open to anything like that, but I'll share those thoughts. And again, Cheryl, awesome about the hair. I think that's amazing. Rose says, this is good game plan for me over house is quite orange. When you need to do something important, move something important, you forget where you saved it. So something that you might want to do. So again, you have to understand that this is only temporary. I don't know if school's ended and you'll do something in summer, but then create a map. Like what I always suggest to people is, I don't know if you can pack up things. Something that might help you in a temporary situation is packing up things and putting them in the garage and labeling them, and then creating a map. So I know in the garage, we just have like a shelf, but I know that those have Christmas decorations. They have empty boxes like for our TV. And so if you know where everything is, and then if he's, continuing to get violent, pack things up, make a little map, label, so you know where everything is. Okay, so then I want to get your long time question. Given this child, how do you keep mementos for him, for us, without adding bad energy? Because their times are hard, have been hard for years. Not much fun parenting him. Oh, my heart goes out to you. Okay, there are a couple things you can do. Well, first of all, bad energy. If you look at my podcast, I've done an episode on space clearing. I don't have any sage with me here, but one thing, that might be good for you is clear the energy of the house. So you can do different things, like, say, if you can't have photograph because he might tear this up, can you do a digital photo frame? Sorry, I had to think of the word there. A digital photo frames that have memories. Again, like, I don't know if you could put that somewhere so you couldn't harm it. There's something like, could you create, I don't know, kind of what memories are to you. Like if you had different clothes, like I had a friend who created a quilt from all their old t-shirts. Instead of having, t-shirts from 20, 30 years ago and that were getting holes, they created the quilt. So it's something they use and has the memory. So something like that might be an option. Tell me a little bit more about momentums. And then, you know what? I would encourage you, as much support as you need. Is there a parent group in your area for parents with autistic people? See if there are some nonprofits or organizations that have resources. And then, I'd encourage you to, maybe there are people that I have, and I interviewed someone, and if you go to my YouTube channel, it should still be there. And they talked about finding the gifts of autism and the gifts that people bring, and kind of switching that thinking. So maybe that will help you. It's not to diminish your problems by any stretch of the imagination, but just perhaps as a different perspective. So let me know a little bit more about mementos, and we'll talk about that. And so Cheryl, doing good, living in a condo the size of a postage stamp requires so much patience. Gosh, I bet, especially now. I wanted to come out and buy a house and be done. I took my son's advice and decided to wait until things settled. It was a huge concession. Got here the day before the shelter in place. I had a meltdown, which was selfish, took many steps back. Okay, I don't think that was selfish at all. You're human. I had a meltdown the other day and I was like, it's been almost 2 months. I'm going to cut myself some slack. So I encourage you to cut yourself some slack. First of all, it's a huge Colorado to Las Vegas. Any move's big, but that's a huge move. It's not like you were, a drive away in 45 minutes like I did. So cut yourself some slack. You then, the day before shelter, come on, you're in a new place. You're in a really confined space. Be gentle with yourself. You're doing a good job.
Do you speak kindly or critically to yourself? Are you always trying to control people, events, or outcomes? How supportive is the company you keep? Ready to release stress and embrace tranquility? Get control of your clutter so your clutter doesn't control you. Reclaim time, money, sanity, and resources. Emotional Got Clutter 365 journal prompt supports you in clearing your emotional clutter. Free gift with purchase to support you even more in your journey to declutter your life.
Okay, so then Rose, the scent distraction is so clever. He likes to smell perfume, gets up close and personal. Oh, so that's good. And you know what? I'm just going to tell you the essential oils I use. This is one that I found in the store now, but I don't know where you're located, Rose, because you can order them online, but they're called Eden's Garden. And I like Eden's Garden because it's not a multi-level marketing setup. And again, people do that. I respect it. It's just not for me. And so they're really affordable. Well, that way, especially if you know what kind of scents he likes. And they have, well, this is the one I recommended at the beginning of this. So it's called Thieves. And I made hand sanitizer with this. And it's, I believe, on Eden's Garden called Fighting Five. And I know I've read things that people are like, essential oils, homemade sanitizer doesn't work. I don't take that point of view. The Thieves and Fighting Five were the oils that they used during the plague. And so when they had to get the bodies, they put these oils and, put their handkerchief on and go out and were able to not die. So check out Eden's Garden. I think that's great. And, they're really inexpensive, and I think they're good quality oils. And then that way, and they actually just you can get on their email list, and they did a little blog post, which I need to read, but it was like, how can you make sure you're getting a good quality oil? So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, definitely try some different scents. Let me know, Rose, if those suggestions help. And Cheryl, I hope you are being kind yourself. And tell me what else is going on. These are tough times. You have to cut yourself some slack. I think one of the reasons I shared my meltdown yesterday publicly, because I just needed someone else besides my husband to say, it's okay. You know what? You're human. And I tried the best I can, and I try to be a good human, and I try to learn, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm not perfect. I'm perfectly imperfect. Phil Shipley, my friend from high school. Hey, Phil. Phil is a firefighter. So thank you for your service. When I move to Wheeling, I want some of that good Greek food I always see you cooking and sharing when I'm on Facebook. A friend from high school. Actually, Phil and I have known each other, I want to say, since grade school. But then I might be wrong. Sometimes I can't think of things. So from Rose. Thank you. So many good ideas. Fantastic. That makes my heart happy. I'll check out that website. Kid mementos include baby items like birth tag. Oh, I've got some suggestions. So birth tags. So first I have to say, Phil's going to make me some Greek food. Phil's going to make some Greek food. So you all will hold him to that. And we've known each other since kindergarten. Hi, Mrs. Abraham. I'm glad you're enjoying watching and listening. So Rose wrote, thank you, so many good ideas. I'll check out that website. Kid mementos include baby items like birth tags, cards, baby clothes, toys, school crafts, just mom mementos. I have 2 adult kids, college grads, and plenty saved from their lives. Just wonder if it's just live in the present and not save for it. Great comment, Rose. So I have a couple thoughts. Living in the present moment is your point of power to change, and that's how you can take action and move forward. Now, that is not to say that I'm saying don't have mementos, don't have things. You have to do what your comfort level is. There are a couple things that I suggest you think about. A lot of the younger generation today don't want stuff. And so I would have a conversation with your kids, like, what is it that you all want? What is it that you want from this? Do you want all this stuff, or should I let it go? Now, I always love shadow boxes where you could create a really cool, I had a client that sadly lost a baby. And so she had this box for years, and it had been 10 years, and we opened it to look at it. And, she at one point was able to give the crib away and went through that process. But what we did was she had some baby clothes, she had some hair, and create a really beautiful shadow box. So that is something, again, maybe not right now. I think one child is in a very stressful place. And so definitely that might be too much, but I love shadow boxes. I love creating something like that. I think that is a good way to clear your clutter, but create what were the most special pieces? What are the memories that's most important to them? And when working with children, I am a huge fan of getting children's feedback, because what you might think is important, they might think isn't, and vice versa. And when you teach children to declutter and get organized, these are skills that they're going to take with them throughout their whole lives. I work with adults who weren't taught these skills as children, or, if something might have happened in childhood, that's really important, get the kids involved. I would not make decisions without getting them involved. Now, if they say, Mom, I don't care, then create what it is for you and what would make you feel good. But again, you want to be in the present moment, honor what's important to you, but not become overwhelmed by that. Does that make sense? Let me know if that does. And Cheryl says, I intend to be good to me. Awesome. It should be fun to figure that out. Thank you. You're most welcome, my friend. We're all in this together. Oh, I'm so excited we have questions. And, I really believe when people come to these, there's something that even if you didn't ask the question, hopefully it's given you some aha and insight into something. So Pam, hey Pam, long time no talk. My 21-year-old says he doesn't want anything. I've got a room. It's funny, Pam, I don't know if you were here for my comment, but I just said many of the younger kids today don't want it. They're moving lightly. I've got a room full of other stuff, but I fear she will want some things later, but won't talk about it. What do you suggest? Great question. Well, there are a couple things. Maybe what you might want to do is have her over to the room and just go through some stuff. Because if I were to just think of a room with a bunch of boxes, well, I might not want that. And so if you can go through some of the things and say, hey, you might not realize what I have here in the room. And so why don't we go through some things and see if it's something you might want? And then that way, that gives her an idea. Oh, well, I didn't think I'd like this, but oh, wow, maybe I want I don't know what's in your kind of things are in your room, but you know what? Maybe I would like to keep one stuffed animal from childhood. I don't know if it's your stuff or her stuff from childhood that you saved, but set aside a day, make it a mom-daughter day and see what she wants. Now, if she says that she doesn't want it, then you just have to trust that. You have to trust that at 21, her mind is made up, she knows what she wants, and to let the stuff go. Now, as I always say, if you can recycle anything, if it's in good condition and you can donate, try not to just throw it all away. But I'd invite her, and then, I think you can make a really interesting day out of it, share some memories, maybe some bonding time, but let her see what's in there. And then maybe you'd like to, prior to having her over, maybe go, unless you know already what kind of things are in there, and maybe you could do like a pre-thing, like, I probably think these 3 or 4 boxes have stuff that she might be interested in. But, try that, have a conversation and just say, hey, just do this for me. Let's just spend one Saturday together. We'll go out to lunch afterwards or go get ice cream or do something. But if she sees it, most of us are visual and most of us are visual learners. So again, boxes are visual, but if I don't know what's in them, then that's what I'd suggest doing. Let me know how that sounds to you. If you think that would be feasible, then I don't know. Hopefully she's in the area to make that easier. But even if she comes home to visit, set aside. And what my father did was, I have a bunch of crap here in the basement that has your name on it. Come and go through it. And I did. And that's the other thing I want to say to parents is don't become a storage unit for your kids, especially if they have their own home. Say, give them deadline. Okay, I'm downsizing. I'm decluttering. This is your stuff. Come and decide if you want it. Go through it. If not, I'm letting it go. And put in a deadline, okay? Because if we don't have a deadline, then it tends not to get done. And you're still being a loving parent by saying, hey, but this is your stuff, okay? It's time. They've moved on. Now, if they have maybe an apartment or in transition, of course, be generous, cut them some slack, especially if you have the room. Now, if you're planning on downsizing next year, then, I would say, okay, you know what, come on, we got to get a game plan and do something with this. Pam says, great idea. We can do a Zoom session. She's out of state, but I think that should work. Awesome. So, then a win-win. And from Miss Rose, now that I can see the chat, I'm so excited. Rose says, yes, it does make sense. My adult kids have said I've saved too much, but that's according to their standards. Okay, so be gentle with yourself. Another project, but it's a good idea. A shadow box for my autistic teenager is a sweet idea. I do have a baby box for him, but the school crafts and childhood mementos would work perfectly in a shadow box for me. Fantastic. Carefully packed away till it's safe to display. Good. Perfect idea for me. A project in homage to his childhood. I like that a lot. Yay, this is making me so happy. You've been so wonderful to me today. I so appreciate the help and love your podcast. Have listened to every single one. Thank you. You're most welcome, Rose. Come back next week. Thank you all, everyone who showed up today and asked questions or made comment. Rose, Pam, Cheryl, Mrs. Abraham, Phil, Shipley, my friend from kindergarten. Hey everyone, this is part 2 of questions and answers. It was from the episode that I did on talking about obstacles that people face and challenges when they get started organizing at the beginning or during. And so these were the questions and answers. Hi, Rose. Great, we have a question. What is your best advice for the frugal versus decluttering dilemma? Okay, I want to talk about this, and if any other advice or any other thoughts you have, share with me, because I want to make sure that I'm hitting on what you think. So for frugal, I consider myself pretty frugal in some areas. In other areas, probably not. I would say that, one, that's a good question. Sometimes with being frugal, not always, there is a scarcity mentality. And so I'm a firm believer in having an abundant mentality as much as possible. And again, sometimes that's not possible. If you grew up really poor, I can understand why you'd have a scarcity mentality. If you've had stuff taken away from you as a child, even if money wasn't an issue, but someone just said, hey, we're going to take all your stuff and clear it out, I can understand why you might be frugal and want to hold on to anything. I think in that situation, you have to ask yourself, what is it costing you? If you say in a marriage, have one partner that's frugal. Okay. So Rose added saving things to be frugal long-term. So versus decluttering. So you have boundaries and order. Okay. That's good. So what I would say is, one thing that I say a lot to my clients is trust that you'll get what you need when you need it. Now, of course, that's easier said than done. But if you have stuff that's been taking up space for years and you haven't used that, what is that costing you? And again, I would ask yourself and anyone else in the family. So if you're the one that's not frugal collecting anything, it's costing you peace of mind. It's causing stress in the relationship, and you don't know how it's affecting other people. So that is about reaching a compromise and finding a middle road if you're with someone. If it's just you being frugal, then you have to remember, when you have clutter, it not only takes up physical space, but it takes up the energetic space. And so you can't call into your life what you want. And this is just take a moment for self-examination. What is it that maybe you've wanted to start a new class and learn a new language, or maybe you want to start painting again, you want to have a creative endeavor? When you have all that clutter in your life, you can't start it. Energetically, everything's really packed, and that doesn't allow room for the new stuff to go in. So if what I would say is, it might be a challenge to all at once be like, I'm done being frugal. I am completely done, and I'm going to be able to do all this. So start small. If you are someone who saves everything, and I know I'm green, and the challenge can be like, I go nuts when my husband, not completely nuts, but when my husband doesn't recycle the toilet paper tube. I'm like, come on, just put it on the little window next to the toilet and I'll recycle it the next time I go out, because I'm like, you need to recycle everything. So I tend to be rigid about that. I'm working on that. But so people who are green tend to are frugal and tend to want to save and reuse everything. I had a client once, and she was bordering on hoarding. And so I have a questionnaire before I always even, talk with someone to make sure I'm a good fit. And she wasn't honest with me. And so I walked in the house. We only did 3 hours together. The good news was she had found what there's one particular item she'd really wanted to find, but it had gotten to the point where her children had said, we're not going to bring the grandkids over because we don't feel safe with them. And so she had gone onto the hoarding website and said, well, I think it said if you have 16 inches from the wall, you're a hoarder, but mine's only 15 inches. So, there's that whole other thing. But there was a service around here, or where I used to live, and he would take everything and he could sell what he could. He'd donate to nonprofits, recycle what he could. It was a really great service and it was free. And he came to pick, and I said, call him. He'll take what you declutter. And so she said, he wouldn't take it. So I said, well, let me reach out to him. I have a relationship with him. And what he told me, he said everything was junk. It had deteriorated so badly. He said, I can't use any of it. I can't sell it. And because he has to think with his time and money and truck and what he pays people, is it going to be worth it to him? And so in that case, it wasn't worth it. So people agreeing tend to, not everyone, I don't want to make a blanket statement, but again, they're so passionate about recycling and reusing and all that, they tend to get in that. So if something's really rusty and worn out and can't be saved, you don't have to do anything, but people probably aren't going to accept it. So that's, again, taking the time. Is it a fear? What's it a fear of? And then trying to dismantle that fear and seeing perhaps other actions that you can take to help declutter. But if it's one area, I think, especially if you are in a relationship, if it's one area where you tend to be really frugal and not throw stuff away, if you're in a relationship, you need to balance that. Even if with yourself, you can say, okay, I can live with that. But the problem we get to is it everything. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Let me know about that. And let me know if you have any other questions. I think that's a very good question. I know that can cause a lot of stress. One of the things that I have that has helped me is a mantra I shared earlier: trust that I'll get what I need when I need it. And that I ask myself, well, who can get better use out of this? Books are the hardest things for me to give away, but I love libraries. And so I know a book that I'm letting go, the library doesn't have to pay for that book. And yes from Rose. Perfect. Glad that was helpful. Let me know if you have any other question. But for me, giving books, I know that the library doesn't have to spend money because I've loved the library since I was a kid, and so that someone else can read the book. And so to me, that's a win-win. And so maybe for clothing, in Raleigh, they have a store where you can donate clothing and the proceeds help battered women. So if you are stressed out or it's a challenge for you to let go of your clothes, maybe you find somewhere like that, okay, the sale of my clothes are going to help women who are battered. Because a lot of those times, those women don't have anything, might have to leave in the middle of the night with just a suitcase. So find something like that might help motivate you. Well, I'm going to help someone else, or whatever your favorite charity is. So you know that what you're doing is doing good and supporting people. I mean, I know that always is something that helps me. We declutter when we let go of what no longer serves us. Not only does that help us, but it supports other people, because you are an example. Hey, look, I decluttered. Look how the energy shifted. Look what I'm doing in my life now. Look what I was able to create. When you do that, you show people, and I believe, even though it's usually not spoken, you give other people permission. They say, Rose did that, now I can. And again, you might not even have a discussion about it, but that's what motivates me to keep doing this work, is to have people sharing their gifts with the world. I think that is absolutely what is most important to me, and what gets me excited and what gets me going in the morning. I know it's a challenging time. I mentioned at the beginning, maybe now is not the right time for you to be decluttering and getting organized because you're mentally spent. It's, I was thinking about it the other day, and one thing as I've gotten older is I believe in the and more than the but. And the example I'll use is, because I've seen this floating around, the greatest generation, the generation of World War II, would probably be saying, give me a break, to all the people that are mentally challenged during this time. That's a true statement, because they probably would be and instead of but, because remember, but we're like kind of stopping, But an Anne says that this can also be true. Well, the people of that generation didn't live as we live today. And so it's kind of hard to compare apple to oranges and saying that people are lame because they're having mental challenge isn't fair, and it isn't true because they didn't live in the same time period. So things have changed. And so I just encourage you to remind you that, judge less and live more. So Rose says, I've been interested in minimizing like a minimalist household, but it was too rigid. So good you notice that. What is your advice for good, strong boundaries that minimize and make big impact, but not be one a religion, like a strict format that many minimalist theories presented? Oh, well, first of all, Rose, thank you, because I didn't realize, I see the one guy, what's his name? Is it Josh? Someone who I've sometimes seen his stuff pop up, and I never saw anything religious related to that. So that's really interesting. So that's a great question. I think that you can have, again, like if you are dealing with the household, that's much different because you have other personalities and challenge in dealing with people as opposed to just what is, if it's just you, because it's a lot easier sometimes if you're the only one making decisions, you don't have to compromise and negotiate. So what I would say is, first of all, and I mentioned, I don't know if you were at the beginning, I talked about being rigid is one of the things that can stop people from decluttering because you have to follow all these rules. It can get frustrating. What happens when the rule doesn't fit? The example I used was someone said to me, you only touch one piece of paper once. That I've found personally that's not to be realistic. But if you're trying to do something, that could be just like, I'm done. So what I would say is create your own set of boundaries and your own set of rules. So what does being minimalist mean to you? Because you and I might have very different things. So an example I'll use is, I love to travel. I love to travel and I love to get back home because we are kind of homebodies. But one thing when I travel is I always get street art. I like to support the local artist, and they're well within my budget. I'm not going to spend $1 bazillion on art. And I love it because they capture the vibrance of wherever I am. They capture the feeling of what I'm looking for. So that's one thing. So a minimalist, in quotation, might be like, yeah, no, you have way too much artwork. And so that doesn't work for me. And I would not call myself a minimalist, definitely. I declutter a lot and I go for more and more. Like I have a friend that I would call minimalist. He has 2 bowls, 2 plates. I think he has more than 2 glasses and 2 sets of silverware. I'm pretty sure I know about the bowls and plates. No, I don't do that. Like we have people over. I like cooking. I like entertaining. So I'm never going to have 2 bowls and 2 sets of everything just for my husband and me. So what I say is, what makes sense to you? Like for instance, my art, I'm never going to take art off the wall. And I think where I get tripped up also is when I see the minimalist stuff, it just looks bland and dark and there's no color. And I don't know if that's on purpose or I just haven't Googled enough, but I don't like that. I like color. I need vibrancy. I think that that's something important to me. That's what the artwork does. And so what I would say to you is what's important to you. So I am not a minimalist in art. I'm trying to think. So, but like I mentioned at one point, like I have 1 bookcase and that is what my parameters. I don't want more books than fit in this case. So pick areas, define what being a minimalist means to you, and like figure out what areas can I really be a minimalist in. Is it books? Is it entertainment? I'm looking, we also have a china cabinet in here. And so I have a set of dishes that if I break them, I'm good to go. And I have others like when we have over for entertaining, but I've had people before where I need to use just about all my dishes. So my husband would say I'm not a minimalist when it comes to cat stuff, although I have a moratorium on cat trees. We have 1 cat tree per cat, I believe. So that was something I'd say, okay, they have enough. And I joke about that, but I had to say, okay, The cats have enough balls to play with. So figure out what it means to you. What areas can you really be a minimalist in? You know, my husband, for example, when we downsized last year, he gave away a lot of tools because I think he had one thing that cut tile. He said, nah, you know, probably not going to cut tile again. And we knew where we were moving, although we'll see where we end up, as our plan wasn't the plan to move, but we are going to be moving next year. So he let that go. But he uses all the other stuff. So I'm like, you know, don't give away the stuff you use. That's kind of crazy. But he's gotten much better at really paring that down. So if you use something, or, you know, I mentioned my mom loves nutcrackers. I didn't mention that yet. And they bring her joy. So she has a lot of nutcrackers in the home. Well, then that's okay. That's something you put out once a year. You take care of it, you know, but maybe she's not interested in minimalizing that. But define what it means to you, and then set the parameters. And then when it comes to making boundaries, you know, that's what you have to be consistent with your boundaries. You can't say yes one day and no the next. If you let your boundaries be pushed, and that is a sliding boundary, it just, first of all, it's frustrating, and it just causes you more headache in the future. So I would say, once you make a boundary, make it. And then, you know, if you are negotiating this with a spouse or within a family, you need to get everyone on board. You know, that's when you have to have some compromising and some giving and taking. Maybe, you know, you want to get rid of all decorative pillows, and your husband's like, you know, well, hold on. I kind of like when you remove all the decorative pillows from the bedroom or the living room. That just makes me feel like it's very cold, that it's not warm and inviting, and the pillows make me feel these spaces are warm and inviting. You say, okay, but instead of having 15, can we reduce it to 10 or whatever? And again, the more you do this, the easier it becomes, and it'll be easier to negotiate boundaries and what you're trying to do. Does that make sense? Is that helping?
Overwhelmed with stuff, can't find what you need when you need it, tired of wasting time and energy maintaining your mess, longing for peace of mind. Get control of your clutter so your clutter doesn't control you. Reclaim time, money, sanity, and resources. Physical Got Clutter 365 journal prompts supports you in clearing your physical clutter. Free gift purchase to support you even more in your journey to declutter your life.
So Rose says, yes, thank you. Negotiations of boundaries and a hybrid of strict boundaries for the triggers of too much of one category is great idea. Thank you. You're more welcome. Oh, good question. I like this question. Rose asked, timers. Do you think they are good motivators or detractors for organizing projects? I love this, because this goes back to one of my earlier points where you can easily get stuck. Because if someone reads that a timer, you got to use a timer, but that doesn't fit with you, then that can make you cranky and make you lose your sin. I tell you guys, I see this again and again, and it's why people call me, is they start and then they lose steam or something happens. I think I love this question because it's a good way to check in with yourself and do right by yourself. So I would say it's completely individualized. An example I would use is sometimes people will say to writers, you know, write 100 words a day, or write 250 words a day, or whatever it is. Some days I can write 1,000 words. Other days I'm struggling to put together a sentence. If you're in the right frame of mind, you know, if you're in the flow with life, so just ask. And you know what? If you're like, I have no clue, try. Put on a timer for 10 minutes and see how that goes. And if you're absorbed and lost in the moment, that's fantastic. And if you're not, if you're always looking at the clock, and maybe, for instance, if you work with a family on a project, say, okay, guys, try an hour, try a half hour, and say, okay, from 10 to 10:30 or 10 to 11, we're going to work on this project. We know that during this time, this is where the focus has to be. Now, that's not to say, like, if you need to run to the bathroom, saying, no, you can't go to the bathroom, it sits within that time. But to have like, oh, I need to have a sip of tea, I need to have a sip of water. and, take a momentary whatever, like, hey mom, how you doing over there? I have a question, but that you're still working on the project. But I would say to test that out and see if that helps you. Now, I will probably get this backwards, but I remember reading with people who have ADHD. I can't remember if timers help or they don't. So if you, for instance, are challenged, or if someone in your family challenged, maybe said, because one thing I say is work on something 10 minutes a day. That adds up to, I think it's almost 61 hours in a year. So you can, if you do something for 10 minutes a day, that ends up being a huge chunk of time over a year. But if you have someone who is challenged to focus, they can't sit still for half an hour, then do it and try 10 minutes and try time to say, okay, I know you can do this. We're going to set the timer for 10 minutes. We're going to set the timer for 5 minutes. And this is what I want you to work on, and then go from there and see. And whenever you can, have a healthy reward. Do something then, say, if we get through this, then this is what our reward is. Maybe we go for a walk outside. Maybe we get an ice cream cone. Maybe we play a game of the family. Now, I like rewarding myself for a bubble bath. That's one of the easiest things, or just sitting outside. Now that I've worked and done a lot in the bedroom, then I was able to say, okay, this is what I'm going to work on. This is what I'm going to do. So if I get it all done, then I can say I've done my part. Please sit down with me and let's go through your dresser, which we'll take, and your workout clothes that are underneath the bed. That's the only thing he's going to have to go through in the bedroom. But because I've done it, it's a little clearer, and that's what I'm talking about, that energy. My dresser isn't, I got all the old t-shirts. My dresser isn't a hot mess, and that makes it more inviting and more welcoming for him to come and want to declutter and clear everything. So let me know, Rose, if you have any more questions, and hopefully that answered it. I know when I tend to answer things, I go on tangents. Now, one of the things I try really hard to do here, because sometimes I have a habit of, I will say A, and then I'll get to E, but I've skipped B, C, and D. In my mind, I've gone through B, C, and D to get to E, but I don't always articulate that. So hopefully I've done that well, but I just kind of, one of the things I do when I work with clients, when I do something this live coaching hours, ask, what do people need to hear? What is it that's most important for people to know, and trust whatever I'm led to share is going to support people. So, might not be watching live, but they might watch it later. And so trusting that they will need to hear what they need to hear. Awesome, Rose. All your advice today was very helpful. Last week too. Love these sessions. Thank you very, very much. You are more than welcome, Rose. Thank you for being brave enough to share your questions and advice that you're looking for, because sometimes that can't be easy. And I know definitely last week you shared some things, and I'm eternally grateful for that, because I believe you sharing your challenges are definitely going to help more people to seek support, find some answers, and to do things. So thank you very much for that. So everyone is doing the best they can in these challenging times. Try to find the opportunity, the good, how you can be grateful. Know that the sun is coming. I feel like it's peeking out from behind the clouds. Do what you can to be safe. Do what you can to support small business. Do what you can to spread love. Do what you can to check on each other, love one another to the best of your abilities, and do what you can to be a helping hand to someone. We're all in this together, and the more we realize that, the more we'll be able to get through it. But we will see the sun shining again, I promise, and we'll be able to get outside, walk again. I think we're having a new normal, and I think that that's okay. And my hope is that we'll have a lot more good come out of this eventually.
Take actions from today's podcast. Pay attention to where you're challenged. Think outside the box when you can. Consider all of organizing and not just one part. Look at all aspects of your life to support you when decluttering and getting organized. Seek support when necessary. On our next episode, we're talking about harmoniously working together in the household. Go out, clear your clutter to create the life you choose, deserve, and desire. When you clear your clutter, you can share your gifts with the world. Sign up for our free newsletter at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. If you've enjoyed Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, please rate, review, and share us.